Good afternoon, Rich, and welcome to Business Spotlight Interview.
Thanks for having me, Colin. How are you?
I'm excellent, excellent. So to get started, Rich, just to give the viewers a little bit of a background, maybe just a little bit on yourself, on the business you own, how long you've been in business, etc.
Okay. Well, the foundation of all my businesses, I'm what you'll call a serial entrepreneur, is real estate. So what I essentially do is I acquire commercial real estate properties, kind of find out what that demographic in the area looks like and what may be missing in that area. And then I take that acquisition and turn it into a new business venture. Most recent that I've done is a spot here in downtown East Point called Rich and Poor, which is a lounge in the metro area. And it's been a fascinating experience, to say the least, so far.
Excellent. Yeah, it sounds like you got your hands in several pots, which is always exciting for an entrepreneur. So maybe first question is just think about success, think about your journey to here. And who's the first person that comes to mind when you think of the word success and why?
So my answer may be off-putting, but if I'm just transparent with you, the earlier version of myself. And what I mean by that is I think entrepreneurship is absolutely a journey and somewhat a difficult journey, right? Oftentimes you walk that journey by yourself when you're an entrepreneur. And it's very few people that may be in your social circles really can appreciate or identify with you and the experiences that you may go through in going through that journey as an entrepreneur. But when I think about success, I think about the younger version of myself who was willing to tread through those deep waters by himself without, let's say, seeing the shoreline, but committed himself to the idea of one day perhaps being successful and doing exactly what I wanted to do. And I think that type of mind state is pivotal in entrepreneurship, but I think also for someone to do that and commit themselves without, again, seeing the shoreline, that is someone that I feel is represent what it is to be successful.
I absolutely love that answer. It's not one I expected, but I absolutely love it because you hit a lot of key points there, especially mindset. And mention of the potential loneliness and difficulty of the entrepreneurial journey. It's absolutely true. I talk to a lot of entrepreneurs, and that's a common theme. So excellent. I absolutely love that answer. So how long have you been in business doing what you say you're doing as far as buying capital assets and growing them?
Yeah. So my entrepreneurial journey started as a teenager, right? And had way more failures than successes by far. But I maybe experienced somewhat of as a level of success, maybe at around 33. So again, that's maybe 15 years ago for me now. But I, at the time, acquired actually at the point I hadn't acquired the building, but I started a business that was in the financial sector. And I was able to grow that to one of the largest in the third largest county in the metro area. I went from essentially homeless to 7 figures within 7 years. And I used that leverage to then start acquiring the assets to create other businesses. And so that's kind of the short version of the experience. But yeah.
What do you think has been some of the you talked about your young self and the journey you were on. What's been some of the biggest sort of lessons and learnings along that path, Rich?
Well, I say this. I think that the best analogy I can give in my experience in entrepreneurship is if you imagine a nice summer day and you walk onto the beach, right? The beach, walking onto the beach is the initial thought of, I want to start a business, right? It's, the sand between your toes, it feels wonderful. The idea of being an entrepreneur and starting a business sounds amazing in your mind. And as you walk the shore, or walk on the beach, and you walk closer to where the waves can actually reach your ankles, that's the next step in entrepreneurship. And that's kind of when you start establishing what the business is going to be. And you start making the necessary movements to position yourself to be a businessman. As you go a little bit deeper into the water, say when the water hits your kneecaps, those are the things you start making solidifying the business, right? Where you get your phone line or you get your office space if necessary. But this point, when the water hits the small of your back, and most of the time, like if you walk into the beach or water, it's that chill, that part of the experience of getting your small of your back wet is a point that most people in entrepreneurship or in business at least pause, right? Because now that brisk chill felt a little bit uncomfortable, right? And that's the first part of actually doing the business or whatever sector you may be in. But as you're making these progressions into the water, the sun is dropping. And by the time the water gets to your chest, you're, well, the analogy would be knee deep, but actually chest deep in, right? And so you're thinking to yourself, this is not as easy as I thought. But it's not too late if I turn around. And a lot of people are really considering turning around at that point because they haven't made the revenue that they thought would make starting off in the business. But again, the sun has gone down completely and the water is hitting the chin. This is the point. This is the point. And if I could share with anyone in entrepreneurship, when I shared with you earlier, when I could not see the shoreline, the younger version of me could not see the shoreline, but he continued on. What I've learned in business is that what most people do, as soon as that water hits the chin, they say to themselves, I can't see any further. The sun is going down. I'm going to turn back around and walk to which I just came to get back to that shoreline where it's safe, where it's comfortable. But the encouragement that I would offer to anyone who wants to walk into this path of entrepreneurship is to not stop. What I've realized in the course of these many years of being in business in totally different sectors, across totally different platforms, is that the water never gets any higher than this. It never gets any higher than that, right? And the sun does come out in the morning. And you would find that if you keep in that journey and keep walking your walk, steps by step by step, you will eventually get to where the destination of what we call entrepreneurship, and you will experience some level of success. But that journey in itself, the things that you will learn in that walk, would be so beneficial into what you would consider to be your success. And that's assured. That's a promise.
I've been doing this for a while, and I think that's about the best visual analogy of entrepreneurship I've ever heard, Rich. I mean,
Yeah, thank you.
I was kind of in a trance just listening to you.
Yeah.
That was outstanding. And
Yeah.
you're exactly right, right? To achieve breakthrough in business, in life, and anything, right? It takes intention, and it takes energy, and it takes focus. And oftentimes we do want to take the comfortable route and back up and swim back to shore. So I absolutely love that answer. So paint yourself out 5 years from now, maybe for you, for the company, or companies potentially you have. What's the aspiration in the next 5 years for you?
That's really a great question. It's a great question for me because, I ponder on this often. And I ask myself, people who have a pension or 401k, they have plans for retirement. But I think an entrepreneur is kind of who I am as a person. So I don't know if I'm able to retire for myself, right? I feel like I would always want to be in business in some form or fashion. I just feel like that's just the person that I am. So I struggle with the when I'm asked that question, because the answer for me on one hand is like I would like to be removed from day-to-day tasks of running and operating several businesses. However, maybe see myself in more of a consultant position. Yet, as soon as that thought comes to mind, I also think about the current business that I just opened, which we alluded to a little bit earlier, is Rich and Poor. And from my standpoint in business, it has been one of the more challenging sectors that I've worked in. I've never worked in a restaurant at all. So to actually make an acquisition of a building, to do the renovations and design myself, and learn the front of the house and back of the house myself, to employ people to then help implement the vision that I had, has offered me so much challenge and a way to really push myself and grow myself. So with that being said, I'm interested in not only creating new rich and poors across different demographics in other cities. But I also have found myself with the idea of opening venues very similar to the concept of rich and poor, also in different demographics. So if I had to decide on this Thursday afternoon, then the idea would be the latter, which is to grow the business currently, which is rich and poor, into the other cities and demographics that I feel like could utilize the concept or idea of what the rich and poor ultimately is. So that's where I see myself in the next 5 years.
The reason I like that answer so much is you're literally describing what we call the entrepreneurial ladder, which is you move up, from employee to leader to owner, and eventually you move up to the ideal is investor, and to get a business that can basically run without you, to the point where you're working, just on your business, not in your business. That takes time on every business, but you've done that over and over, and then you utilize those profits to reinvest and scale, and it's literally our definition of business success. So well done. I love listening to talk, because you're
Awesome.
driven exactly what we try to get people up there, and not everybody wants to be at top of that ladder, right? And that's okay. But if you're cut out for it, it takes work, but you always want to keep reinvesting that capital, right? So excellent. So as you know, I'm a business coach, so I have to ask a question about coaching. So who would you consider your best coach in life, and why?
Wow. Experience has been an amazing coach. Experience has been the dynamic coach, right? As I alluded to a little bit earlier, I had more failures than success. Unfortunately, well, not so much unfortunately, but I took the steps and not the elevator. So I really had, and to the point that you spoke to just a moment ago, I went through each of the steps, right? So I was not handed anything. I had to literally learn each sector that I work in. I had to start from the bottom. I had to learn what it is to sweep the floors after a busy brunch. I had to learn what it is to operate the back of the house, because they have a chef who a chef was called out, right? So to learn these things puts you into the experience that you can't buy that, right? Like, and then when I'm in these different sectors in the business that I own, when I sit with someone who is offering would potentially be a solution or in a sales pitch, I can speak to the fact, no, that's not right, because this is how it works, and this is the margins for this, or so those things. So experience has been a phenomenal teacher for me. I think there's very much a level of importance to have mentees and mentors to help you soften the path, to soften the falls that you want to go through. I unfortunately had not had that experience, but I try to offer myself as a mentor to mentees who I feel like I can help facilitate that movement into entrepreneurship a little bit more steady, and with a guiding hand, which I did not have, which for me worked in my favor, because it offers me again the opportunity to teach and share with others the steps that I made and where I've been wrong with, also because those steps that I went wrong are equally as important as the steps that I made correct, right? Because in those steps that I did wrong, I learned exactly what not to do and not repeat that again. So that's been my experience.
Yeah. And as a business owner, you need to know a little bit about everything, don't you? Right. You don't need to be an expert, but in many areas, but MBAs, schools, education in general teach you how to be really narrow and really deep, right? How to be a great employee. But in entrepreneurship, it's literally the opposite. You need to be, you don't have to necessarily be shallow, but you got to be wide. You got to know enough about all the different functions to be able to manage them, understand them, measure them, etc. Right? So, perfect. You might have a unique answer for this question because of your previous comments you made, but I'm curious if you had a chance to get on a time machine and fly back and meet your 18-year-old self and whisper in his ear and give him some advice and say, "Rich, listen to me, do this," right? What would that advice be to your 18-year-old self?
That's a dynamic question, Colin. So interestingly enough, maybe a year or two ago, I was cleaning out a large wooden box that I've had for, oh my God, maybe 1,000 years. And as I'm tossing things out of the box into the trash bin, I remember going to bed that night. And as I'm laying in bed, I thought to myself, what was in those composition notebooks? Was I threw away composition notebooks? And so in the middle of the night, I get up and I go to my trash bin and I dig out these, it was 2 composition notebooks. And I went back in my home and climbed in bed and I turned on my light and I opened and began to read. Colin, what it was it was a journal dated from, at this point, 25 plus years ago, right? So it wasn't my 18-year-old self, it was like my 22-year-old self. And I'm reading his day. And some of those days I remember that day. And reading the challenges that the younger me was going through, right? And not seeing the shoreline. And him talking about not seeing the shoreline. And what am I doing? Why am I still trying to do this? And to be very transparent, I shed tears for him. I cried for him, right? And I wanted to, and I spoke to the universe and said to myself, to him, keep going. The water's fine. And if you knew what you did for us, right? The former me and the current me, you are a hero to me, because not very many people be willing and able to do it, but you did it. And so that is what I would say to him.
Actually got chills, if I'm honest with you. You now I understand your earlier answer better, right? When you said, as far as your who was success and who comes to mind. That all comes together now for me. Well, that's pretty powerful, my friend.
Very much, it's a true story, and I think about that. I think about that all the time, Colin. It's in the front of my mind, and it matters, right? It matters.
Yeah, it does. And you're speaking about mindset and all the other things it takes in order to get where you want to go. So I need to have you come along and speak at some of my seminars, because you're speaking from the heart and you're speaking from my hymnal, but you've lived it. So stories are the most powerful thing we can do to convince people of anything, and you got some great stories.
Yeah, I would love to, actually.
Yeah, excellent. So last question for you, just to make sure any of our audience or viewers want to get in contact with you, want to visit Rich and Poor, want to visit a website, want to take advantage of a newsletter, deal, whatever you want to do, just leave listeners with sort of your final thoughts on any connectivity you want to make sure that they don't miss.
Sure, thank you. So Rich and Poor, therichandpoor.com, also The Rich and Poor on Instagram and all the social media outlets. It's the latest venture that I've acquired and positioned myself in, and one I'm extremely proud of. What we offer is, at the time of recording, live entertainment on Thursdays, magnificent dining experience, and a area that is currently in redevelopment, which is the downtown area of East Point, that again I'm very proud of. And even to that point, my first time going into a venture where I actually gutted the property, built out the property, designed the property, and there's so many Easter eggs inside the property. So to your point, the space in itself is a mental design. There's art pieces on the wall, and what they all have in common is none of them have sight, so the eyes are covered up. And the reason was very intentional, because it's this phrase that I coined, that there's a vision that does not require sight. So able to see the design, the layout, and what I was wanting to design in this space. And I'm 100% in the completion of the 100% completion of the original vision that I had in mind. I was actually make it a personification of myself, or what I think about, how I see the world in this space. So extremely proud of it. I would encourage people to come out if I'm there while they're there, to definitely speak to me and then ask more questions about the layout, the design, and why I did certain things about that space that I did do. That some things will fall never witnessed, never noticed, but if you're paying attention to the space, there's so many storylines there. And I love talking about it. So if there, please ask.
Excellent. Maybe just one more add-on for you. So anybody listening to this, so rich and poor is P-O-U-R, as in poor, not as in P-O-R. So just a bit of a clarification. Rich, I have absolutely categorically thoroughly enjoyed this interview. It was a pleasure to meet you. You are inspirational man, and I wish you all the best in all your endeavors, including Rich and Poor.
Thank you so much, man. I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
All right. Take care.
All right.